Welcome. How's everybody doing? Everybody made it through the week, the craziness. I'm Shelley. We've never met before. I'm the founder of Curate LA and moderator of this panel today. I want to start by first thanking Murmurs for hosting us. Yes. And thank you to our partners, Kickstarter and Mezcal Amarás. We're going to have a little party afterwards. BROWNSKINHAZEL is going to DJ, so please stay for drinks. We'll go till 7, and I want to dance, I want to drink, so please stay to do that with me. And yeah, so today this panel is about money, honestly. It's about finding resources outside of institutions and government grants. As an artist specifically, how can we get funding without depending on those sources, especially at a time where we see a lot of institutions pulling funds from people, censoring people. So like, how can we break away from that and not depend on them, and to depend on ourselves, from our community, and from crowdsourcing. There's, you know, all this different types of ways out there that I feel like aren't really talked about, that traditionally artists and institutions that are non-museums that we don't really talk about. So I'm going to introduce our panel, our panelists. We have Danny, Baez, and I'm going to read, sorry, because I just couldn't remember everything. So Danny Baez joined Kickstarter in 2023 as their head of arts, so it's a new thing. Overseeing their visual and performing arts categories. Before Kickstarter, Danny founded Regular Normal in 2020, an art space that strives to disrupt the status quo of galleries, museums, and institutions, and be a haven for artists in the communities they represent. He is also a co-founder and the director of the Maea International Art Fair in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, as well as the co-founder and board member of the Art Noir Collective. And then we have Laura Hyatt over here. Laura Hyatt is the executive director of LAND, Los Angeles Nomadic Division. I'm sure everybody knows who they are. A nonprofit public art organization that commissions site-specific projects with the most innovative artists of our time. Maea has been one of them. As an experienced creative producer, Laura is committed to expanding opportunities for artists and access to art. She's a co-chair of Sexy Beast, an initiative supporting reproductive rights and bodily autonomy, a board member of the Museum of Contemporary Art Santa Barbara, a founding member of the Los Angeles Visual Arts Lava Coalition, and co-founded the Hammer Collective, a young patrons group creating entry points for next-gen cultural philanthropy. And then we have Ozzie Juarez. Ozzie Juarez is a multidisciplinary artist who uses the realms of painting and sculpture to honor and revitalize ancient and recent cultural artifacts, languages, and histories. Inspired by the techniques, collaborations, ambitious, and ephemeral qualities of unsanctioned public art, Juarez incorporates excerpts of paintings he observes across the LA landscape into his own work. He's also co-founder of Tlaloc Studios, which is in South LA and houses a group of artists. They have their studios there. They also put on exhibitions and events. And then we have Maea. Maea creates sculptures, installations, and performances that investigate and celebrate her experience growing up in Southern California and her family's Samoan Mexican-American community. Her organic and inorganic materials draw from a variety of spaces, including her home garden, urban lots, and the Los Angeles River, each of which carries a history of its own. By using materials that will deteriorate and decay, and by focusing on collaborative making with her family and friends, the artist proposes a practice that challenges the fetishization of objects frozen in time, presenting us with a practice that understands deterioration, mutation, and change as a part of the work, just as they are a part of life. So a lot of different backgrounds, but we're all kind of working in community, which I think is amazing, and I think we all kind of share that. So we will get into it, and I'm gonna start. This question is kind of for everybody, and I can also start to break the ice. So I want to know, each person, what are the ways that you've utilized to make money outside of galleries or grants? And I know it's like a weird question to ask people how they make money. I can start. Curate LA, actually we do crowdsourcing in a sort of, in a membership-based type of way. So we have members that you can join as just a regular person, or as an artist, or as a gallery or a museum. And that's how we make our steady funding. And then we also take money from advertising. We are not a nonprofit, we're a for-profit. So we've never had any grants or institutional funding. So that's how I make money. How do y'all make money?
Hi, OnlyFans. Well, I make money right now because I have this job, Kickstarter, so I have a salary. Previous to this, I was selling art, and that was the only source of income that I had for a long time, because the fair doesn't produce money throughout the year. It's only one-time event, and that's the only opportunity that we had so far to make money with that. And then because we might not possess the support that our Baez and Freeze has from banking sponsorship, that allows them to run the company throughout the whole year. And the same happens with other institutions that are non-profit, like New Art Dealers Alliance, in the sense that they receive grants from the government and private funding, or donations to support the operational thing throughout the year. So that was pretty much before Kickstarter, the way I made money, selling paintings, sculptures, and whatnot.
Hi, everyone. So, I'm a person based here in Los Angeles. I grew up in Long Beach. I'm a non-academic, so a lot of my work has actually been, I've learned through production design, I've learned through working in film and in the industry. So I do that as kind of always, and I have always done this as kind of side hustles that kind of fund my art. It's only in these last few years that I've really found kind of a bridging between my art making and these kind of jobs and sourcing things. I rent spaces in the city. A lot of my work is built collectively. I source things throughout the city. So a lot of my objects that I use are found objects or plant matter that's found out throughout the city, and I collect it. It's not easy to fund my work. It's not easy to fund my practice. I'm still a working artist, so I still take jobs in between big exhibitions as much as possible. Moments like this help, but also, it's always refiguring out what it means to kind of reoccupy myself in this position as artist. The transparency with money is different in that space. As a production designer, as a person who works in film, I know when my timelines are, when my payments are. This is a different world. And so I'm still kind of in that learning space here. Working with land, working with institutions like this, I've actually really kind of softened myself into learning some new language, how to ask for transparency within the art world. When I do enter into more institutional spaces like museums, like the Hammer, like Orange County Museum, these relationships with people like Laura, with folks like Ozzie, who do a great job at running communal spaces, have kind of taught me how to gain some transparency, but I'm still figuring out how to make money here. I want to be really clear on that part.
Well, aside from selling paintings and selling other people's artwork, I curate for multiple galleries and institutions, so I get commissions and also I get paid a rate from doing curation, and that's kind of something that I'm really passionate about, so it's something that's kind of passive in that. And I also, through my art spaces that I run, I make money, not a lot of it, but the money that I do make there which sometimes involves like putting events and selling, you know, t-shirts or selling prints and selling things like that. It all kind of goes back into the gallery space and just to keep promoting the artists that I admire, the artists that I support, and it's all kind of, all the money that I get within the stuff that I curate, even the paintings that I sell, it all goes back to the space to kind of keep on giving as much as the space could. And I also do consulting jobs for different art projects, and have an experience in scenic painting, so I still also do stuff like that, like here and there, to kind of pay the bills and kind of keep that going. But aside from selling my own work and selling other people's work, like I also work with other companies and things, even like things like this, to get some money, and all the money that I make all goes back into the projects to kind of keep on going. And even like working with Land has been really exciting. We've worked with them a couple times, and that's been really cool. And then all the stuff that we produce is involving the community. So everything that I try to do is involving my friends and the people around me, and try to get everyone paid and not be selfish with the money, but also give back as much as I can.
So Land is a 501c3 nonprofit. So we're probably the most kind of traditionally organized. It's our 15th year, which I'm really proud of. And making it to this. Certainly through COVID, there were times where I didn't think this would be possible, but especially in the recent years, I'm really interested in kind of hybrid for-profit, non-profit models, and kind of moving more in that space. We can talk about that a little bit. But it is a constant hustle and fundraising all day, every day. And ultimately, at the end of the day, for me, that's just relationship building. So it's building relationships. Who do you want to be in relationship with, and who understands your vision, who's going to support that in the most kind of authentic way, and without compromising your values, without exploiting yourself, your own labor. But it's a mixture currently of grants, a lot of personal contributions, and then fundraisers. So, yeah.
Yeah, so lots of different ways, but I feel like we're all in similar boats. My first question, outside of just getting that out of the way, is how can the art community collectively challenge and reshape gallery-driven trends, ensuring that the market forces do not limit artistic expression and that emerging artists have a space to thrive? So yeah, kind of to this authenticity, like how can we have more control over the money that we're bringing in?
I mean, I feel like Ozzie, like everything that you do is that.
We build our own things.
Yeah.
We build communal spaces. I mean, Ozzie does it really well. I ran a space in Mid-City that's also for performance, 2012 to 2016. That's how I made a lot of the community that I'm showing with now,
Yeah, I think like they were saying, like, once you help out the community, like everybody just gets back, and it's all ecosystem within each other, that we don't no longer need the gallery spaces anymore. Like if we have our own space and are doing our own thing, then we don't necessarily need the support of these bigger spaces. Although it is very nice to have that support. Like if everyone is collectively spending their money on the community and it's giving back and forth, then it's all there. It's all sustainable, and I feel like more people should start collectives and come together with their friends and bring the entire community together, because that's where the power is at, and the power obviously is in numbers, and we don't need these bigger corporations to do what we want to do. And these bigger corporations look at us and want a taste of this, they want this taste of being authentic, and that's another conversation, how to work with these companies and then being authentic.
Discernment, right? Like
Yeah.
being discerning and how you have these collaborations. Ozzie and I right now are in a group show at Jeffrey Dyche.
Very good show.
Thank you. And we've been in a year-long talk with all 12 artists who are participating, and our ideas about who we collaborate with, as far as brands and everything. We really sussed all that out, and we're really trying to make sure that the things we did were really representative of us. Those aren't always the option. We're in a really privileged space right now to be occupying these kind of gallery spaces, but those resources are not easy to access, and there are years of us working in our own communities, and I think that that's a really complicated thing sometimes as artists. Is like when we can take up these kind of sponsorships, when we, it's a complicated thing to be the people who have to kind of have a moral uprightness about all of that and really try to collaborate with these brands, but also stand in our communities and say these are our lines and these are our limits and our boundaries, because the resources needed too.
I mean, just piggybacking that, it just constantly goes back to community, but beyond the word of community, because people like to throw the community word around. Oh, I'm not a community this, community that, but are you actually practicing community? Understanding who are you really, who are the people that align with your vision and they're willing to take the hard road with you. I know the way this is one of the few ways that you can actually establish these new models of funding yourself, or funding a bigger purpose, and doing things with intentionality. I feel like some people notice that when they're just about the noise and look at me, I'm here, or that. There's actually brands or investors that like that kind of stuff, but then nowadays people want to be more aware of or woke, which is not a reality, but within those parameters of being woke, people really want to see what this is about and understand like what you're saying. They want what we have, but are they going to commit long term, or are they just going to be here this moment because school and then they're going to move to the next trend? So that is also another issue when it comes to continue getting support long term, instead of just like this momentum and then everything's gone next and they move to the next ethnic group or whatever it is at the moment because that's the cool thing at the time. So.
And that's one thing we need to do when we work with these companies is we have to make sure that they're going to be there for the long run and not for the trend or for Heritage Month or whatever bullshit they want to So yeah, we have to keep them accountable for the stuff that they're saying, the stuff that they want to work with. So.
Right, and I do have to say, as a bystander, I feel like y'all, as a collective or this community of friends that y'all have built together, is something to watch over the years because y'all are popping off, and I feel like it's a testimony to y'all being good friends, looking out for each other, connecting each other, putting each other on, which is rare. I feel like the art world is very competitive, and it's not easy to trust everyone. It's not easy to have that support, and I think y'all are really amazing at that.
Well, mobility comes horizontally, so you network with the people who are around you, who are doing similar things that you're doing. You create together. I think sometimes the ambition is to shoot upwards, to look for the blue chip galleries or like the funders, or to try to get all of those grants. As a non-academic, but somebody who was in the art world throughout my 20s, I applied for all of the grants that, some of them now I'm getting. But that took years of kind of sitting in my community with other people who had different skill sets, writers, other friends who could contribute. And now we're all winning in certain ways, but we're all still sustaining ourselves, or trying to sustain ourselves through these art practices. And I hope conversations like this, we can be really, really transparent that this takes a communal investment and years and years of building together to get here, and find the people you want to build with.
So, Laura, this question is for you, but anyone can answer also. But so, as artistic entrepreneurship gains prominence, how can the art world create a supportive ecosystem that encourages artists to venture into business without compromising the authenticity and cultural value of their artistic endeavors?
It's a very loaded question. On the one hand, I think you want to say artists should really focus on the work and doing the work and whatever that looks like for them and finding the right kind of partnerships. But I think Ozzie and Maea and this whole community across LA is this testament to building those models. And so I think it's important to look at what models exist, but how can they be done differently? How can they be done more sustainably? That's a lot of the work that I do with land is, for the first 7 years of land, it was just these annual fundraisers and auctions, this constant asking artists to support this work was completely unsustainable. So when I came back to land as director in 2019, I was like, we can't do that anymore. And I think Maria and I have talked a lot about this too. It's also this recognition of labor and what is labor, and our world is no, there's no labor here. It's just pops out of nowhere. It's artists, there's so much labor. So I think as a nonprofit, really trying to acknowledge that labor at every kind of scale of production and fabrication, and anytime there's an ask out, it's what is the kind of compensation? What is the exchange here? And not just assuming that that it's an equal reciprocation. And I think just collective models, both collectively within artists and everything that's happening in LA, but collectively within organizations, and again, this kind of looking to new models to create, and how can we kind of collectively advocate for one another.
Yeah, and I think also, I am an artist, but I'm also an entrepreneur. And it took me a long time to take that title on, but I think a lot of artists are entrepreneurs. You're running your own business, and sometimes you have to think that way. And it's hard for artists to think that way. It's really hard, Okay, so Danny, considering the systematic biases in traditional funding sources, how can alternative modes of funding contribute to a more equitable and inclusive art world, ensuring diverse voices are not only heard, but also financially supported?
Great, because it's an open source market. For example, Kickstarter fundamentally breaks in the middle all the traditional funding systems that we know, because it becomes this space where capital is open to all creators, no matter their social connections or backgrounds, because a lot of funding that happens in institutional work is based on who they are, who these people, who they represent, and if the person that's going to actually support, or the people that are going to support this, sometimes venture capitalists, they don't feel the idea, they don't feel the vibes of these things, and one member of any funding group don't like something that can go to nothing, even if everybody else is aligned. One person can disrupt the whole process. So given that the platform was built on the principle of community support, this allows for hopefully more equity in the space and visibility and inclusivity into the environment of the artists right now. So throughout the years, even before my time, because I think the first time that I supported a campaign was in 2013. It was a friend of mine that told me, I'm doing this art show in X Gallery. I need money for, I think it's called Shelley. And I gave $30 at the time. And I got a pamphlet back or something like that. But I thought it was a great idea, and the whole premises of Kickstarter started for that. Like the main founders started because they needed to get money for the bands to play live, and then artists to fund all the creative projects. But now, given the times and the computers and all that stuff, technology like design tech took over kind of the platform, but art still exists there. So if you went to Kickstarter and you didn't see anything art related, we still do that, and I'm in charge. So please tap into me. So with that in mind, throughout the years, we have to see story of successes at Kickstarter that are attached to groups that being overlooked or underrepresented for many years, and this is like a space that you can come forward and do what you have to do and connect with people that are like-minded, or people that understand the vision beyond what it's even comprehensible for themselves, but they see the love that you put into it, and then you go into space. With that in mind, we've been working toward a new kind of model that we can support projects from within Kickstarter without having to use, we're still gonna rely on the people, but to cater in a bigger way to projects that we believe are meaningful or deserve this. And it's a complicated situation because we are a PVC, which is a public benefit corporation, but we're still a corporation, then bringing other corporations into the corporation itself to support this. It's not an easy task, but we are working toward that kind of model, hopefully, that we can cater to like people of color, or LGBTQI plus creators, or any other kind of groups that are not fully represented out there, and we can actually pony up more money towards what they're doing, and then they just can just roll with the rest of the campaign, hoping that the people in general will like push into to the final goal. So that is one way to see it. And for me, especially being a brown Caribbean man, my mission is to amplify those voices, but also like amp it up the amount of people of color that comes into the platform and all those other groups. Because, well, I mean, it's obvious, right? Like you go into the platform and everything exists there, but you see a constant presence of white creators because they have the tools, all the educational resources for these things that we don't get to be taught or learn as we go, because it's not for us. You know, I mean, it's for us, but not really like fully like that. So Kickstarter is gonna break, or hopes to break with that kind of paradigms. And hopefully I can achieve something meaningful with that.
Yeah, that's the goal. I also think we just don't, as a person of color or even a woman, you know, it's like I wasn't kind of primed for this world, you know, and I don't have the figurative balls to, you know, go to VCs and say, give me your money. I'm not a white guy, you know. I'm trying to bring on that attitude more and more. Okay, so this is a question for everybody. In light of potential compromises to artistic autonomy with institutional backing, what strategies or frameworks can be established to foster a balance between financial support and preserving the integrity of an artist's vision? And a sub-question to that is, like, what is your selling out threshold? And like, how do you know when you're reaching that? How do you know when something is right for you and you're not selling out?
Well, I cannot say much about the selling out part, but I would let the artists to do that because they're more like in tandem with this kind of situation. They're like, oh, you know, make this, I don't know, table and for these people, or we're not. But based on the first question, one way to go about it that we also practice in Kickstarter is like being more transparent and communicating what is the process like. So we thrive in like getting the creator, like the person making the project, to talk directly to the backers. Even we are the middleman, the platform, whatever you want to call this. You communicate to the backers or the people that are supporting your project, like your successes, failures, what's going on, and you can get also feedback from them, like, hey, I'm supporting this, but I feel like you should maybe do this way. So there's a direct line between you, the maker, and the person that wants to put money into your project. And there's what institutions can learn from this too. It's like not everybody has the same budget, so it's not one size fits all. There you go. You have to cater to it specifically. It's like there's people that just need 50K to finish something that's 150, and they already got 100,000 for someone. You can come to Kickstarter and say, okay, this is what I did before. This is the way I want to do it. I need 50K to reach this goal. Can you help me do that? That is one other way. And risk-taking. Because institutions will not take risks at all. Well, I can't speak for all of them, but it's the usual norm. Like, why are you making plans to this? Like, what is this about? So this is a space for you to maybe bring something that other people say, and this person is bold. I'm gonna get behind this, that you cannot get from, I don't know. I don't want to say names because there are these really great institutions that has funded so many crazy projects, but if you go to the same place as always, they might not be into this. They might not tune into what you bring into it, but the people will. And that is one way that you can compromise your artistic values or practice at all.
Yeah, I feel like as long as you could work with these companies and you could work with these like mega galleries and to, you know, be selfish and take it all for yourself and actually use it, like starting Tlaloc Studios. Like instead of like, you know, starting this gallery or this communal space, I could have bought a Camaro, you know, but I didn't. I wish I did, but I didn't. You know, but then be more aware of that and where your money goes to is really important. Like, oh, my friends need studio spaces. Let me be the one to get the money that I made and start that. Okay, I'm getting this X money from this company. Okay, I'm going to use that money to do this. And sure, and like it might look like you're selling out because you're working with whoever, Nike, X brand, you know. And they're like, oh, this guy's just, you know, working with this company, he's taking all the money and buying nice things. But in reality, like, I'm putting it back into what my community stands for and what I stand for, and I'm going to continue doing that. And I personally feel that way because I grew up in the punk scene, and through all that, I did everything myself. Like, I started punk bands, I started communities, I made my own shirts, I made everything myself. And just because I have a little bit of money now, I could use that and start something else. And I do. The majority of the projects that I fund are self-funded, and I'm going to continue doing that. And even my own art, like I don't ask people for money to make my art. Like, I invest it back into myself, and I wouldn't consider that selling out because through my art, I'm helping a larger community through them being inspired of what I'm doing and what the art could do in the long run.
And what I've noticed is as we kind of gain access in these spaces of privilege, of prestige, we've been really collectively talking about scaffolding building for the larger community. So like we're entering into this space, even in the ways we've kind of approached galleries collectively that I've seen with friends. What we've done is we've actually asked the gallery to change the models, right? Galleries are individual entities, but they work as a gallery system, right? And so even the way profits are cut, 50-50, that's a standard, but that is, everyone has their own choice in that, right? So collectively entering into these spaces, what we've been able to do is we've been able to ask for different kinds of negotiations. We want to set a trend of artists actually asking for more. So, you know, that's a big part of collectively what we're able to do when we enter into these spaces of privilege. I think a big part of kind of remodeling for folks who are younger than us, you know, in our current show right now, we've actually asked the gallery to donate 10% of whatever profits they would receive into a grant that collectively we would run. This is a different kind of model. This is something we talked about in the months leading up to, and you know, we proposed this to our gallerists at that moment, and they're open. And this person has a lot of power within the art world. This kind of sets a model and a trend. So I can go into my next solo show and I can say, hey, I would also like 10% of my earnings or your split to go into this grant. Do you agree? Like that helps us restructure what the future could hold. You know, and that also allows us some agency as we move forward on like, okay, as a 12 party or as 12 artists, where does that grant money go? You know, and we're just at the opening of our show. So those conversations can develop over time, but this kind of gives us agency to say, hey, look at these models we can create within the gallery system. Look how we can be radical in these spaces. This is all still really new to us. And again, we're all coming from working class backgrounds. We're all kind of really learning how to take agency over our voice and our community. And we're understanding that from our vantage point that we can make active change, but that's actually something collectively we're feeling way more empowered to do. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to ask a gallerist this had I been in a solo show right now. But I think there's something about what we've been brewing collectively. And there are artists who are older than us in the show. There are people that I've learned from through their practices. I know younger artists who have learned from my practice. And just to be in conversation and say, like, when we get beyond this trend, when brownness doesn't feel like the in vogue thing, how are we sustaining ourselves? What models do we care about? You know?
And as artists, I think that we have the upper hand because, like, they're looking at us. Like, we could do our stuff ourselves too, and we could navigate our life with ourselves and with our art. But they are looking at us for them. So I feel like when we joined this group, we felt empowered. I mean, like, you're looking at us to make this show. Like, without us, we don't have this special show. So give us the 10%.
Yeah, and I think also with technology, like with platforms like Kickstarter, or even just the internet, now we have so much more power. Like you're saying, like, you might not need a gallery to sell your art anymore. I know. They understand. But yeah, I think it is, like, it's scary to take risks, and like, to be told no hurts. And I feel like, I mean, I get told no probably 80% of the time, and you just kind of gotta move forward. And yeah, and if you keep asking and you keep taking risks, I think that someone will say yes. So yeah, it's cool to hear that.
Like, you don't need a gallery, but there's a special relationship between the gallery and the artist that's needed, you know, even like throughout history, and like different connections and how to build your own connections. Sure, you could sell your artwork online every day without a commission profit, but there's something special about working with a gallery and having to do a lot of things that you don't have to do yourself. Like, the gallery takes responsibility of taking photos, it takes responsibility of, you know, showing your art to new collectors that you would have not, you know, shown to. So it's very important as well to have that duality. And I don't agree about just like selling your artwork through Instagram, and I feel like it's important to show with institutions and galleries and build that relationship. Although you could sell it if you want, sure, but there's different avenues to this and the way.
Yeah. And there's a lot of power in curation, you know, like getting to see a body of work, getting to see a community through a collective show, through, you know, a group show. These are really important ways, and these are historical. And, you know, I think every time I go to a different group show, and there's different themes, and there's different reasons why these artists have been brought together, and maybe it illuminates artists I had no idea existed within the community. So, like, space is really important, and I think both of us and both of our practice have always been grounded in space making, and, you know, the work comes through there.
And even with like my gallery, myself at Cloud Studios, like a lot of these artists that I show don't need my platform. Like, there's a lot of artists that I show that already are in high caliber situations, but them showing at this space allows other people from the community to check out this work that otherwise wouldn't check out the work. You know, that otherwise like wouldn't. Like, there's a lot of artists that are already showing at mega galleries that are not showing at my space to make money or to do anything, but they're doing it because they want to be a part of the community. And again, there's something really powerful about having a community and being a part of it.
To that point, I believe that nobody gets anywhere by themselves.
Exactly.
When people come like, oh yeah, I got here, I got it on my own, that's a lie. Somebody directly help you, so along the way. It is a lie. And there's this, for example, like going back to the spaces at Kickstarter, like you need the team behind you, but autonomy is very important for yourself too. There's a great example for that. My friend Tariq Ushifara, who's an artist from LA, but lives in New York for 11 years now. He approached me and said, I want to make an artist book for my practice. And I was like, oh, that's cool, like, let's talk. At the moment that we, stopped texting, I said, I wonder what happened with his gallery. Like, I didn't want to ask him. He left. He has problems with the gallery because his gallery it's a blue chip gallery in New York City. It's a well-established gallery. I said, why he's coming to Kickstarter, which I'm happy he did. But I said, why he's coming to this when he has this funding behind his practice? And when we're doing the Zoom call, I say, hey, I'm sorry to bring this up, but do you leave the gallery? I say, no. Are you in bad terms with them? I say, no. I say, so why are you wanting to do this? I'm happy, I say, but why are you doing this here? I say, because I will have total control of how I want my practice to be seen without the gallery interfering with this or bringing their own writers into the space. And throughout the time that I've been published before, I feel my work hasn't been presented the way I want to present it, so I want to control that narrative now. That's why I'm going to Kickstarter. And he funded. He fully successfully April, we're supposed to get the book. The people that supported that. And I was like, okay, so there's a way your gallery can still be involved. Tell them to donate X amount of money to that campaign. Because long term, or like right there, they're gonna benefit from this too. And he said, oh, I didn't think about that. So this is another way too that you can use the platform. Like even if you're already with your own project or you work long term with Dodge, if you really want to do something that you know that it's only fair to you that this is the light you want to bring to what you're doing, you need autonomy for that. And this is a great space to doing that because given that the company, in this case, but Kickstarter has such a broader kind of things that they offer beyond arts. It's like publishing, this film, this whole that. When any communication of what you're doing goes out, it goes to a group of people that you never met before. And that might become your new community as well. Because they're, oh, what is this? Actually, and that's that. So, but I feel like that is still, even when you want to have, that kind of sentiment that I'm gonna get there on my own, you need a team behind me. So the gallery, it's like, I had a gallery, so I cannot speak ill of the gallery system. We are in a gallery right now too, and you run the gallery space as well. I understand the nuances of galleries taking advantage of the artists constantly, more than not, but I believe there's really good people out there working for the greater good for the artists.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to say we don't need galleries. It was more of the mindset to be a little more creative. That there's, I'm supported by galleries as well. I'm supported by museums as well. But also, and I think what's great about this Kickstarter crowdsourcing sort of foundation is that it allows people from the everyday person who may not be a collector, who may not be, because people have to get through the gallery gateway in order to collect certain people's art when you're at a certain point. So it allows people to contribute and have a little piece of it. Our funding system, we have $5 memberships, and I feel like it helps to create community and just have people who may not have thousands of dollars to still be involved and be a part of it. Right, exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna ask one more question and then we're gonna open up questions. So in envisioning the future of arts funding, what aspirations and changes do you as artists hope to see in the coming years? And how can the art community collectively work towards shaping a more sustainable and inclusive financial landscape for artistic expression?
I'll say I really love the model at Curate LA, and Land also has a pay what you wish membership. I think it's these collective models. Land is also a part of the LA Visual Arts Coalition, which is a coalition of 33 nonprofit arts organizations across LA with all kinds of budget scales. And since 2020, we've raised $2.6 million collectively because we were all trying to fundraise from the same very small pool of foundations. And it's why are we all asking for a little piece of the pie? Let's go for a bigger piece, and then we determine how we allocate those funds. And I think, just these kind of get creative, think collectively, think about the autonomy and power that you have individually and how you can kind of grow that within your community.
Transparency amongst friends. I think that's a huge part of, as you enter into new spaces, be willing to talk about it, be willing to be transparent about what sort of resources you're able to access, what challenges you faced. I think that's one of the biggest growing things for me in the last few years is as I've entered these spaces, I've also leaned into my community who have already moved through these spaces, who are moving through these spaces currently, and I've listened to their challenges. And again, we've been able to kind of think of new models with just this dead show. And I feel like that's huge. It still feels really small and abstract because it hasn't happened. The show just opened. But I think that those are kind of, and even sharing that right now, I didn't know if I felt comfortable sharing that or if that was an okay thing to share, but it feels important. It feels important that we could say, hey, we went into a blue chip gallery, 12 brown folks who are amazing artists, and we asked for a different kind of system. And with all of Jeffrey's history and knowledge, he agreed to it, because he wants to be a part of that sort of art history as well. So he wants to be a part of these kind of radical changes. And Laura's already been such an amazing person with the project that her and I did at the State Park this past year, where I was able to kind of use my art practice to also enter into a lot more nonprofits. I worked with Artworks LA, which works with continuation school students. This is, as a non-academic, has really helped me bridge myself into the education system. I'm doing a project with Los Padrinos through the Royal Heights Arts Coalition. again, like just kind of accessing these new spaces for myself as a person who comes from a labor background, who comes from a non-academic background. It's been really important to, yeah, just have that kind of transparency.
Yeah, I think just like you said, like radical changes and asking for more. Like we always maybe not want to give ourselves enough, like, do I deserve this? Do I need less? Do I need more? And I feel like demanding more from the people who are asking to work with you is very vital. Like, you might feel like, okay, they're giving you $5, and you're like, well, I think I deserve $20, and I feel like saying that is really important. And when companies approach you, I feel like if they want to work with you, because if they approach you, that means they are dying to work with you, and so you have the upper hand. And I have an example where Adidas came to me to do a project where they wanted to use my gallery to promote their new shoe. And I was like, well, what am I going to get out of this? You know, like, I don't need you to promote your shoe in my gallery. Like, my gallery promotes, like, my community. And, like, so how do I do that? And I took it upon myself to be like, okay, I'm willing to work with you on this project, but, and then put them to the test, you know? And then, like, but we have an elementary school that's a block away from here. You guys need to give everyone free shoes in order for you guys to do this. And if they say no, then, like, you know where their head's at, you know?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, exactly. You're like, no, then forget you, you know? But they agree, and they're like, yeah, of course, we're gonna give everyone free shoes. And so, like, doing stuff like that, where it's like, you have the upper hand, so you decide what you want to do and how you do it with them. And maybe there could have been more. And currently, I've been approached by Perrier to work with them, and I did the same thing with them. I was like, okay, cool, we'll take money from you to create these shows, but we need at least 2 murals this year in South Central that's funded by you for the community. And they're like, say less, you know, let's do it. And so, like, doing that, because they're not gonna be the ones to say it. They're not gonna be the ones to be like, yeah, let's give this kid shoes. Like, no way, you know? So I think we need to just be more, you know, upfront with what we want and reach for the stars when we talk to these companies.
Well, and it's not always monetary, right? Like, those are some of the exchanges I've had. I've gotten to do this to donate to my students in South Central at Horace Mann High School. And again, it's because we're in these networks, you know, we're around each other, we're around people who work in the corporate sectors of this, and it's just like, talk to your friends. Like, bring those bridges together, and yeah, really amazing things can happen. And like, for me, it just a bunch of shoes I grabbed from a warehouse that a friend had lent me. But like, that meant a lot to my students, you know, and in these moments where you have these connections, really lean into them and see how they can be generative in your larger community, you know. Let's go, girls. That was cool. I'm done.
Any questions? Okay, amazing. Do you want to come and say something on the mic, or do you want to just project?
I'm loud.
Okay.
I had a question about how you guys price your artwork. Is there like a standard that you say, okay, you know, this piece is this size, so that should go for like this thing, or is it based off of your like history of what you've sold? And then also, do you guys communicate with each other about how to keep the price up? Yeah.
You know, it's kind of funny, like, even with amongst artists, it's kind of still like a taboo to speak about how much your paintings are worth, you know? Like, unless you guys are like tight like that, then you could definitely talk about it. And I feel like amongst a lot of people, like, people don't really talk, because you don't tell somebody how much is in your bank account, you know?
Right.
It's like that kind of spoke. So, but the way, like you were saying, like the history and like your rap sheet of what you've been doing is really important. And sometimes, like, I'm working with a lot of artists who are showing for the first time, and a lot of these artists are like, there's this 12 by 5 inch painting, it's $4,000, and I have to be like, hey, hold up, man. I know that you think you're worth as much, and you are, but we got to start somewhere. Let's sell 10 of these at $500. And if we could sell 10 of these at $500, then that means that we could sell 10 more at $1,000. And so let's start somewhere. I know that you want to price your work automatically at $10,000, and I've been witness to that, where if somebody comes with a painting that's a foot by foot, and they're like, "This is $10,000." I was like, "Where? You know, why? You know, can we look at that? Can we talk about that? Like, who bought this for $10,000 in the past? Well, nobody. Like, have you sold this for $10,000 before? Like, no, I haven't. Then like, why is it $10,000? So that's important to galleries, and that's important to other collectors. Because when you start talking about collectors and all that stuff, like, people want to know about that. People want to know the price of something and what people are willing to pay. And if you had a whole sold out show and each work that's 5 by 5 feet was sold at $10,000, that's amazing. And then the next show, you maybe raise it up another 1,000, you know, but don't go from 10,000 to 20,000. You know, it's like, doesn't make any sense. It does make sense that you raise it up another 1,000 because now people are after it and people want it. So we'll raise it up like that. So I always encourage artists to start off small if you haven't sold anything yet. You know, if you have nothing on the market and you've sold 0 artwork, let's start at $100. You know, let's start at $300 and see how it goes. You know, and then if you start selling and your history starts progressing, then let's crank it up. You know, and if you sold everything out at $20,000, amazing. Let's go another 22. You know, and so the progression like that's important. You know. And sometimes it's jeopardizing to the artists when some galleries are like, "Oh, your work last show was $20,000, but now we're hyping it up at $120,000." You know, sometimes it doesn't work at all. Sometimes like these galleries want to, you know, give that prestige by making it $120,000, but somebody only bought it for $20,000, and it doesn't make any sense. And sometimes those careers are jeopardized, you know, because now
you're not selling.
Because now you're not selling. And then maybe if one person bought it at 120, but nobody else wants to buy it, then you're kind of screwed because now it's at 120,000.
That's the thing. Like, wouldn't you rather have 5 people buy it at 20,000?
Exactly.
And then those 5 people, it like builds up awareness and a conversation, which is more valuable.
So having conversations with these galleries and how you price your work is important, and like having that relationship between galleries too. Be like, no, like, don't price it this much, please, because my last painting only sold for 16,000. Like, there's no way this same price is going for 40,000, you know? So yeah, and I've seen many examples through my friends and people that have jeopardized their careers that way, and now they're stuck, you know, and now they can't sell the painting because it's so high up. And now they have to go down, and that looks horrible, because they're like, well, X collector bought it for 40, and you're selling the same size painting for 15 now? Like, what am I doing? And now they're not gonna buy you, you know? Which is kind of like which is kind of insane, you know, and it's kind of tricky. And like the whole secondary market stuff is a whole other thing to talk about. But
yeah, it's a whole other combo, other panel discussion.
Well, I do figurative work, you know, and I do ephemeral work, and I do sculptural work, and so those, you know, until more recently, I had a really complicated way of understanding how those could even be in the market, how they could be collected by institutions. And this last year, I've actually had the privilege of selling some work and really starting to understand like the language that goes around collecting objects that are ephemeral, objects that are going to disintegrate over time. Like, these have been conversations I've had like within my community. But then it's like when I'm going to sell a painted piece, I call Ozzie and I'm like, okay, so I do figurative work and I do these huge sculptures, but then I'm making a small painting on a palm. What should I sell that for? How does that work? You know, and again, that's leaning into my community. And as the figurative works have moved, I've been really transparent with galleries and these entities and asked, what are your thoughts? I've made relationships with gallerists and curators as well, though. So I feel comfortable in saying, there's certain things I just don't know. And that doesn't make me, you know, stupid, that doesn't make me unaware. Like, there's just certain things I don't know about the market as a maker. What can you tell me as a friend, as somebody who I want to continue to work with over the years? And I've seen that those relationships have been really transparent with me, and people have told me what they know, you know? And I think, so make the work you make, but also be really open about what challenges and what limitations you just have around where the work can go, where the work can be in the future, you know? Because again, my work is imbued with seed. A lot of it will crumble over time. I actually think that that's really radical that museums and larger galleries are taking that on, and collectors. And I'll help Ozzie with the back counter and say, hey, Like if this were hanging in your gallery, what would you, you know?
I saw someone else's hand here.
Hi, yeah, this is for the artists that have done like artist-run spaces. I come from a community where those are pretty much non-existent, I would say. So what did that look like in the beginning, just to see what, I guess, that scaffold building?
So in 2012, there wasn't a really strong presence of brown community. I was working, when I opened my space in Mid-City, I met a lot of other folks of color, women of color who were making sound and performance at the time. What that looked like was a full-time day job for me, and running shows from like 10 p.m. to 3 in the morning. And going to sleep and getting up at 6 to go to work. That is why the space was maintainable for 3 years. And that was me and a friend who were just putting in and putting in. And it was great. And we were able to immortalize it with a small like photo book. And the community I was able to take away from that, invaluable. I met so many of my mentors and so many people from just holding that door open. But again, that wasn't an easy task, and it's something I had to do with friends. And again, we had a timeline, right? There was only so much we could do for so long. And that's why I think your model is really interesting, because you're able to gain resource through that in a different way.
I think you were saying like about being selfless, like that's really important when running the community space. And the only way that I could run this space is because collectively, like we all pay the rent. Like I make $0 off everyone's rent. Like I make sure that the way I divided the space, like everyone, even myself, pitches in for the space. And then